everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the Bison video blog, brought to you by Gate City Bank with Jeff Kolpack. I'm Dom Izzo. North Dakota State hits the road for the first time in reality this season as they'll head to Missouri State, Springfield, for the first time since March of 2021. An odd game that was played, of course, during that really odd spring season. We brought up a bunch of stats last week, streaks that were on the line. All of them went by the wayside with a loss to South Dakota. There's still one streak standing. The Bison have not lost consecutive games since 2010, which of all of them, Jeff, that might be the most impressive to me. That streak will be tested now on Saturday.
Well, it'll be tested, I guess. I mean, Missouri State comes in 1-3, and we'll get into the Bears a little bit later. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes after a loss, hitting the road is probably the best thing. At home, you have certainly distractions of just maybe family members, tickets, all that. When you hit the road, it's just you. It's just you, the staff, and the itinerary, and like it's a business trip. I mean, and the Bison really need a business trip right now to take care of business and take care of some things.
So they have already addressed some of that, apparently going into the game last week with a movement up front on the offensive line, moving Gray Zabel from left guard to right tackle and moving Mason Miller from right tackle to left guard. Now, the flexibility here we've known for a while about the Bison offensive line. We talked plenty about Sundell and Westberg interchanging at center and left tackle. What do you make of this move that they did for this past week's game, which may have gone unnoticed by some Bison fans against USD?
Well, it certainly went unnoticed by a lot of people. And what I make of it is, well, something that's been in the discussion stages since fall camp in August. I think they considered it early on when you're talking about the switch, and it tells me they weren't fully satisfied, nor should they have been after the first 3 games, because the running backs, there just hasn't been the room I've seen in prior years. Your top 2 rushers are Cole Payton and Cam Miller, the 2 quarterbacks. Tamarick Williams, really, other than that 54-yard touchdown against Eastern Washington, I haven't really seen him gash. It just hasn't been that consistent 5 to 6, 7 yards. And you look at his yards per carry, it's still 5.5. On paper, that looks good, but it doesn't feel like 5.5.
How much of that is based off that 54-yard touchdown run again?
25% of his total production of the year.
It's a totally jaded-looking stat there. And just the push hasn't been there. We've talked about it several times over the first 4 games of the season where we've just not seen that traditional move up front has not existed for the Bison O-line through the first 4 games.
No, and again, it's really hard to quantify that. When you talk about data, it's more of a feel thing. We've seen football for many, many years, and it's more of a sensory thing. And obviously, I think this switch reaffirms that no, the coaching staff wasn't real happy either with the total production of the offensive line, and this is an effort to maybe put a little more strength in Mason Miller, a little bigger guy inside. And Gray Zabel, I mean, he's an athlete, all right? He played center field, for God's sakes, as a Legion baseball player.
This is his 3rd different place he started at. In the spring of 21, he made 3 starts at right guard. Then he's been playing left guard. Now he's playing right tackle. I know he's gotten some snaps at center. He's been the ultimate utility man. You mentioned his athleticism is coming out of his pores. Be interested to see as this goes forward of him maybe solidifying himself at the right tackle spot.
And it's too early to after one game to say that okay, this is your output right now. We'll see. We'll see how the season progresses. But that unit has got to get better in run offense. I mean, there has to be that drive where the running back is also needs 20 yards downfield after a gaping hole. I just haven't. Have you seen that?
Nope. It's been absent to the first 4 games of 2023. What has been absent has been missed-time penalties and some sloppy play. We saw that indicative, Jeff, on Saturday against South Dakota. Matt Entz, I asked him about it, what really stood out from watching the game film on Saturday, and he said right to that. We've had 2 games in a row where we've had penalties where we've hit the quarterback way after the whistle. That happened with Javier Darrett on this play.
Yeah, no need for that.
That
was a 3rd down incompletion.
And that made it a 1st down that USD ended up scoring. Here where Will Mostert rips off the helmet trying to strip the ball. There was another personal foul there. Just those kind of plays in tight games, which you're going to have in the Missouri Valley, is the difference between winning and losing.
It's they're winning plays and then there are losing plays. And the Bison didn't make a whole lot of winning plays, obviously, on Saturday, and they hurt themselves more than anything. It was just a wild and weird game in one respect that you look at the time of possession, you look at the stats, you wouldn't think of the final score. but it didn't feel that way watching it. You know, statistics are for losers, and I think you look at those stats of that game, and I think that was one of those examples where it just when you look at the rushing and all the time of possession, having a 16-play drive when you're up 21-3 is great. I don't know if that's the best when you're down 21-3.
Well, it's great if you get 7.
Yes.
And not 3, which is what happened. And why they got 3 also was a hands to the face penalty, a personal foul that Jalen Sundell got that took the Zach Mathis touchdown off the board. That's another sloppy play that you can't have.
Yeah, and that came at critical juncters
came at a touchdown
of the
pass.
game. Absolutely. Yeah. So they'll have to correct those things here going forward. So I've seen this before. I mean, this isn't the first time NDSU has lost a game, but where they go from here, I think, is really critical. The Bison, they lost to South Dakota State in 2015. After that, went on to win a national title. Now, I'm not saying this team's going to go on and win a national title, because South Dakota State's a lot better team than the Bison are at this point right now. But you got to. It's time to take steps.
Right. You got to.
It's October.
Right. You got to start moving towards winning football here and putting some good performances together. Like we saw Central Arkansas for 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter, being that as it may, I think still exposed the tackling was still an issue against South Dakota that we saw against Central Arkansas. That was an issue all year long in 2022. I don't think that ever really got rectified, and it's still kind of
there
now.
Yeah, it's still kind of there. Yeah. So again, these are I don't know how you tackle better.
Yeah.
You know, you work on fundamentals. I know they do in practice, and they work on it. But the results got to be on the field. Is that a result of less hitting in fall camp? I don't know.
I want to go back to what you made a point, because you asked Matt Entz about their running back performance, and you were just talking about Tamarick Williams. I think that has been lacking as well. Now, you can maybe correlate to the fact there hasn't been a whole lot of holes for them to run through, but
for the first time, he pointed to the offensive line this year in a press conference.
Yeah.
That was the first time he said that the production maybe hasn't been what they want up front.
And needs to be better. He did address that. But that's something that's been blowing up my Twitter or email today, is like, what's going on with the running backs? Why is our quarterbacks the leading rushers on the team? And I think that makes a valid point through the first 4 games.
Well, one of the reasons, too, is the quarterbacks, the reads. The reads they're getting. So, it's called the RPO run game, and they have a read. And so teams obviously are concentrating on the running backs and letting the quarterbacks in those certain situations say, okay, do what you want to do. That's about the most I can garner out of that.
So here comes Missouri State, and the Bears are in a much different spot than we saw them. Granted, it was 2 years ago the last time the Bison played in October of 2021. Bobby Petrino is long gone now. Jimbo Fisher's offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. Ryan Beard is the head football coach there, who was the defensive coordinator. They're 1-3 on the season. They're coming off a loss to Southern Illinois last week. We're going to get to their starting quarterback, who may be out. This is a team that I thought was making inroads under Petrino. They made the postseason twice, never won a game in that spring year and then the fall of 21. They took a major step back last year, and it seemed like they're regressing again, at least so far through the first 4 games.
Oh, last year was highly disappointing at 5-6. That team was favored to be a title contender in the Valley and just never materialized, just never happened. I don't know, whatever reason. You think NDSU has some question marks. How about Missouri State? 95th in rushing offense. They're averaging 3.4. Well, their leading carry, Jacardi, you're right. Their leading ball carrier is 3.4 yards per carry. They're also, you think that's okay, that's whatever. Scoring defense are 95th in the FCS. And 112th in rushing defense in the FCS. So if the Bison want to get their running game back in track, this is probably an ideal time to do it when you're going against a team that has given up the yardage of 112th out of 122 FCS teams.
Just for your favorite stat, though, they're 15th in net putting. So it's right up your alley there. They're there.
Yeah, I got that going for them.
But that's the thing to me, that they
were this, punts then.
But they were this close to being maybe on the upper echelon, and now it seems like this is the Missouri State team that we knew for the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's almost
really odd.
And it's just over just because the head coach leaves, Bobby Petrino. But something's just not right now. And look, and you read the stuff from Wyatt Wheeler from the Springfield News Leader newspaper. There's just no vibe going right now. And now they pointed to the tougher part of the schedule is coming.
And yet on top of that, their starting quarterback is likely out. Jacob Clark, who's the transfer that came in to guide them, who won that job that was still kind of up in the air going into that first game we showed you against Kansas. Here on Saturday, watch the right shoulder there, Jeff, off the turf in Carbondale. He left the game and did not come back in. Beard said it looks like this could be a significant injury, so likely the Bison are going to be facing a backup quarterback when they go down there.
He had problems with that shoulder heading into the game, so there's probably something issue there. New quarterback. Now, does NDSU have a lot on tape on the new quarterback?
Right.
Do they know what they're getting? I do know this. So you look at his bio, and the young man's name is, what is it?
Jordan Peugeot.
Jordan Peugeot, yeah. Jordan Peugeot was 12th in the country as a high school senior in passing yardage, over 4,400 yards in his senior year out in California, which is pretty good high school ball. So you would think that this guy's probably a pretty good thrower and has been accustomed to throwing the ball a lot. Now it's a little different doing it in the college setting.
Matt Entz was flat on, said it really doesn't matter about Missouri State. This is all about the Bison this week. You agree with that?
Yeah, it's a business. Like I said, we can wrap it up with that because this is a business trip. This is a chance that we'll see what they're made of, and it's not the first time the Bison have lost a game, like I said before, and it won't be the last. But it's where you go from here is really what's going to dictate this.
Really intrigued with that. You look at how the league shaped out, and you talked about this last week. Northern Iowa squeaked out a 3-point win over Youngstown, so they may have rescued things there. And suddenly, Youngstown plays Southern Illinois this week. Youngstown loses that game, Jeff. They may be out of this before we're
no. Well, they're 2-3, but
right?
yeah, then all of a sudden here's a team that you thought was really on the up, and you have 3 losses in this stage of the season. I still think we're at a 3-4 bid Missouri Valley for the FCS playoffs right now.
I had this question asked me plenty of times on Sunday. Is USD for real? Now, with that win in their back pocket, they still obviously have the Jacks to come. They got UND on the schedule. What do we make of South Dakota going forward?
To be determined.
Okay.
They played their perfect game on Saturday. They
Okay.
did. The Coyotes came in and played their perfect game. Didn't commit a turnover. Was really good on defense. Active on defense. Did everything right. So to be determined.
Yeah. South Dakota State looked awfully impressive against UND, furthering the gap in my mind of where things are at in the Missouri Valley football.
Their offensive line is so good.
Yep.
They're so good. You talk about they have good running backs.
Yep.
You throw those good running backs behind that offensive line. Now there is a line that's getting a push.
Yes. You got a couple of 6-year guys up there. Mason McCormick was now named finalist for the Offensive Lineman of the Week in the country for what he did this past week for the Jackrabbits. Busy week of coverage. Jeff and Mike McFeely have you covered at Inforum.com. We'll, of course, have stories all week long on WDAY. Don't forget our Bison Media Zone show is back Wednesday at 10:30 on WDAY Extra, and full coverage in Springfield. Bison Game Day will be live at 10 a.m. A reminder, the football game is on ESPN Plus this week.
ESPN Plus.
Missouri Valley
Not
Game
us.
of the Week. So get that in there.
That's in there.
2 o'clock Saturday in Springfield. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the Bison Video Blog, brought to you by Gate City Bank.